and welcome back to the Outdoor Tourism Content Creator Training. This is our second to last session already. Next week will be the last, and I'm happy to see so many of you back here. We have an exciting session planned for you today, and my suggestion is that we dive right in. You probably know the game by now. I'm just going to share my screen to guide you a little bit through today's session. Okay, so today is session number 5 of the Outdoor Tourism Content Creator Training. Title of today's session is Making Places in Office Seen. Just a quick recap. We started this training with the basics of content-based outdoor tourism promotion, a general introduction to how you can get started on online platforms like Outdooractive. We looked at how we can digitize information and data from the destination and make it available online. Looked specifically into route digitalization, trail digitalization. In session number 3 on March 20, we really took a deep dive into how you can write text, how you can incorporate storytelling, and what digital tools you can use to improve your writing, even if you're not a native English speaker. Last week, we focused on content ranking, improving your visibility on online platforms, and we focused on open data, which I think was also quite interesting, even though technical. And now today, we're talking about making places in office seen, so basics of photography and how you can create convincing offers, how you can digitize places, businesses, and so on. Next week, we're going to talk about spreading the word across different platforms and social media, so how you can efficiently use these other platforms. But this week, we're right here, making places and office seen. Just a really quick recap of how this course works. You probably all know the drill by now, but I just quickly want to go through this. So every session of this course consists of 2 pre-recorded training modules, which we pre-record because they contain a lot of screen recordings, a lot of screen sharing, showing you sort of how things work on online platforms. And if we would do that live, it would take forever. So we've decided to pre-record the training modules, but we will always have an interactive discussion session right after. So any questions that you bring to the course or that come up during the training modules, we can discuss them live. We will be using, or we have been using, Outdooractive as an example for an online platform in this course because we can give you the full access to it. However, you can learn, you can use everything that you learn here about content creation and using online platforms to improve the visibility of your destination and your business on any other online platform too. However, you do receive free access to Outdooractive Business, and we also have offered you an Outdooractive Pro voucher if you have attended any live sessions so far. If you have attended live sessions but you have not received your Outdooractive Pro voucher, please send me an email after the session. Just reply to the invitation email to the session or to the follow-up email that we will send afterwards, and then I'll help you out there. We always suggest a little homework at the end of each session so that you can put what you learn here into practice directly, which gives you a chance to practice it and sort of solidify your skills. But this can also already help improve the visibility of your destination and your business if you run one. So it's going to be useful right from the start. We're not just playing around here. We're actually want to improve the visibility of your destination. A little bit about how we run these sessions here. When you log on to the Microsoft Teams call using the invitation link that you received, please use your full name so that we can keep a list of attendance. If you have already logged into today's call and you've used something else like an email address or a nickname, kindly put your name into the MS Teams chat right now so that we can also include it in the participant list. Just use your full name, please. You have already noticed that your microphone is muted during the course, so you cannot unmute yourself and directly speak up. However, if you do have any questions during call, and questions are very, very encouraged here, just put your question into the chat here in the MS Teams call, and we will discuss them live. You can also always raise your hand during the discussion and then I will unmute you. So there's in your MS Teams app, whether you're using it on the phone or on the computer or even on the browser, there should be a little symbol where it says raise hand. It's just like a hand symbol. If you click on that, then I know that you want to say something, and then I can allow you to unmute your microphone and your camera, and then you can ask your question live and we can discuss it, or even if it's just a comment or a statement that we're going to give, then we can, yeah, you can join the conversation, so to say. Right. There's always going to be a recording of these webinars, so this session is being recorded just like the previous ones, and you do receive an email probably later tonight with a link to the recording. If you have attended multiple sessions of this training and you want to, you are invited to apply for an official certificate as a trained outdoor tourism content creator that confirms that you have participated in this course. It will be personalized, will contain your name. It's going to look kind of fancy, and it will basically show that you have completed this training. In order to apply for the certificate, you will have to complete an online exam, which is a quiz that you do online. It's self-paced, so there's not one specific date where you have to be. You can do it whenever you have the time to do it and from wherever you want to do it. We will give you all of the details next week, so you can then fill this out after the last session. And if you do score enough points, then we know that you have followed this course, that you've been a part of this. It's not super difficult, but so basically, if you have attended the sessions or you've watched the recordings afterwards, it should be very easy for you. But if you haven't, then it's going to be a little more difficult. And if you do complete that exam successfully, if you score enough points, then within a matter of a few days, it can take up to a week, we're going to send you your personalized certificate for completing the course. If you want to, we are offering to include your name in a list, a public list of certified content creators, which will be shared through the Interactive platform, where in case a destination or a business in your country or region requires support of a content creator, they can reach out to you. I'm going to give you a few more details next week, but basically it's just a list that contains names and email addresses of people who have successfully completed this course and therefore have the basics of content creation. This is completely voluntary. You don't have to put your name on that list. It's something that we offer you so that you basically can this way maybe get some clients who need support with content creation, because after you finish this course, you're obviously a well-trained outdoor tourism content creator. But as I said, we're going to talk about this in detail next week, which is the final session of the course. Okay. That being said, we always, as you've already noticed, start these sessions with a Q&A, because it is possible that after watching or attending last week's session, or maybe you only were able to watch the recording of the session, there may have come up some questions that you want answered, or you have tried some things out. So this would be your opportunity now. Just put your questions or comments into the chat and we can discuss them live, or raise your hand so I can allow you to unmute your microphone and share your camera so that we can see and hear you, and we can have a conversation. Let me know if you have any questions. As you know, you're also always welcome to ask your questions via email. So the invitation emails to the sessions that you receive, they come from my direct email address. So you can always just reply to these emails if you have a specific questions or you need support with something. I'm trying to get back to you as soon as I can. There's a lot happening. We do a lot of different activities. So sometimes it can take up to a few days to get back to you, and sometimes I will have to forward your question if it's a very specific technical question regarding the platform to colleagues from other departments who can support you better. Olaf Heinen just remarked that either that MS Teams has some connection problems or interruptions. I really hope it's not due to me. You may have noticed that I'm in a different setting today. I unfortunately have caught the flu, and I'm not quite healthy and up and about again. So I'm joining you today from the comfort of my home. And I do have fast internet here. It should have 50 megabits, but it is possible that it's not quite as good as it is in the office. So if the connection problems get really bad, and you're sure that it's not a connection problem on your side because your internet connection is slow, maybe just point it out in the chat and then I can repeat something that you may have missed. So please let me know if these problems persist. I hope that the sharing of the training modules goes well. Okay, so for some people it seems to work okay, for others not so much. It's always possible that it's the connection on your side, but of course, yeah, please let me know if there's something lagging on my side. Do we have any questions regarding last week's sessions, the previous sessions, the homework recommendation we gave you? Did you all have a chance to fill in more details into your route? Were you able to get your route to an outdirective rank of over 65? So is it a top route now? Maybe you haven't had time to try it out yet, which is also totally fine. This is an offer, not it's completely optional, of course. Okay. But it doesn't seem like we have any urgent questions right now. So I suggest we start with a quick introduction to today's session, what we can expect to happen today, and then we're going to start with the first training module. If you have any question, you can always put them in the chat. You don't have to wait until the Q&A. You can also just type them while you're watching the training module, or you can just raise your hand afterwards, and then we'll discuss them live. Okay, so regarding today's session, today we are going to have an introduction to visual communication in outdoor tourism promotion. What does this mean? We're going to be talking about images. And when it comes to images, we're going to be talking about photography. And I know this is a hot topic, but there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to photography where people think, okay, you have to be a photographer or you have to have at least a very, very expensive smartphone like a new iPhone to take great pictures. This is not true. And you can improve your photography even without fancy gear with a few very, very simple steps. So this doesn't have to be complicated. And this is what we're going to look at in the first half of today's session. So the first module is going to be about visual communication and selecting the right images and how you can take better pictures even without fancy gear. In the second half of the session, in the second training module, we are going to look at creating points of interests. This is something that I teased last week. So we have created routes now. We have created an account for your business, created our first route, digitized a trail or the trail description, things like that. And then I said, okay, now we also want to put places on the map. Places can be things like your guest house or like your tour guiding business. It can be a landscape feature like a mountain summit, a viewpoint, a beautiful waterfall. It can be a local business like a restaurant or a hotel or a cafe, but it can basically be anything that's useful for travelers, for adventure travelers, and it makes sense for them to know. So we're going to look into how we can create these points of interest and how we can link them with route descriptions so that the routes that we created link directly to the businesses we want to support or the places we want to show to travelers. The other thing we're going to look at in the second half of the session is how we can create offers for guided activities. You're going to see that we are using a bit of a different terminology on the Outdooractive platform, where an offer is something that people can always book, and an event is an offer that happens at a specific date and time. But in the end, they're both very, very equally. And this is something that is probably interesting for a lot of you. If you offer guided tours, if you offer cooking classes, if you offer farm visits, whether you offer literally anything that you offer to tourists, you can also share it through the platform, and you can even make it somewhat bookable through the platform with a price tag and all of that, and your contact details. So this, I think, is going to be very, very interesting, and I think it's plenty for one session. So if there are no super, super urgent questions, then I will start the first training module. As usual, if the sound does not carry through, please give me a quick note in the chat so that I know that I have to restart the screen sharing process. Usually Microsoft Teams works quite well, but sometimes it has a few bugs. So enjoy the first session of the training module, the first module of today's training session, sorry. And if you have any questions, just put them on a chat and we'll discuss them afterwards.
In this course, we have already talked about the importance of well-written texts and how they elevate your outdoor tourism content to new levels of quality and inspirational impact. However, and you have probably already guessed this, there is one other aspect of digital content that usually catches a user's eye even more than a catchy title and a poetic tagline. Pictures. If you are trying to show off the beauty of your destination, the stunning vistas and hiking trails, your services and products, words are great, but pictures, they grab attention, spark wanderlust, and make people think, that's where I want to be. So, in this chapter, we are going to answer the following questions. Why do pictures matter in digital outdoor tourism content? What makes great pictures great and bad pictures bad? How can you, without expensive gear or prior experience, become a skillful photographer? What simple steps can you follow to take better photographs? And what to look out for when selecting the pictures you want to publish? Camera ready. Let's go. Imagine scrolling through endless travel feeds online, bombarded with text and information. Suddenly, your eyes lock onto a picture. Crystal clear turquoise water lapping at a hidden beach, or a hiker silhouetted against a fiery sunset on a mountain peak. Boom! You're hooked. Your heart races. Your fingers hover over the book now button. That, my friend, is the power of stunning imagery in outdoor and adventure tourism. But it's not just about pretty pictures. Science tells us that visual triggers powerful emotions in our brains, bypassing logic and speaking directly to our desires. A study by Social Media Today revealed that tweets with images get 18% more clicks and 89% more favorites than those without. That's because our brains process visuals 60,000 times faster than text. So when you present stunning pictures of your adventure heaven, you're not just showing information. You're tapping into a deep well of emotions, igniting wanderlust and creating a connection that mere words can't match. Now, if you represent an emerging outdoor tourism destination, or you are a small business owner in a sea of competitors, how do you make your cozy mountain cabin, guided hikes, or local food experiences stand out? You guessed it, captivating pictures. In a world saturated with content, authentic and inspiring visuals are the ultimate differentiator. They grab attention, tell a story, and instantly convey the unique value you offer. They make the user feel like they already know what awaits them. They are ready to make a decision to travel to you. The question that remains is, what makes an image great? There are 4 basic rules to this, in ascending order of importance. First, quality. Even though there is no need for professional equipment, your pictures should still meet some basic levels of quality. Neither too dark nor too bright, a resolution high enough so it doesn't appear pixelated, and not blurry, but well in focus. In the next section, you will see that you do not need to be a pro to meet these criteria. Second, aesthetics. You might not be a world-class artist, but your pictures should still speak to the part in every one of us that can appreciate beauty. We will share some easy-to-follow steps for making your pictures become more stunning shortly. Third, authenticity. We are surrounded by millions of pictures every single day, and most of us are, by now, quite used to the same old aesthetics of stock images used by companies and destinations all over the world. Interestingly enough, those of us who are on social media will often feel a much stronger connection to the low-quality smartphone pictures that our friends, sister, or colleagues shared from their last trip or birthday party. Why? Because these pictures are authentic, they are believable, relatable, in short, real. If you come from an emerging outdoor tourism destination, people do not expect a high professional, over-edited sunset photo of a waterfall glistening in the last rays of light. No, they want to get a feeling for what actually awaits them. So do not shy back from showing the real, authentic side of things. Not everything has to be perfect. People are looking for an adventure, not a catalog. And fourth, uniqueness. For the same reasons as mentioned before, you will want your pictures to stand out. so you want to try and capture the essence of your destination, product, or business. Focus on what makes it special, what makes it different from others. Is it a particular kind of landscape that you find here, but not everywhere? Is it a certain style of architecture, traditional clothing, or art? Are there certain plants or even animals that are typical for your region? Or is there a particular view along the hiking trail that alone makes this activity worthwhile? Try and show the unique selling proposition of your destination, activity, or product in your pictures. They will automatically grab people's attention more strongly. In the next step, we are going to look at what you can do in detail to become a better creator of visual content. It is not difficult, I promise. For now, let's sum up. Great imagery is very powerful in content-based outdoor tourism promotion. Good visuals make your content stand out, grab the user's attention, and have a psychological effect that influences a traveler's decision-making. The 4 main rules for what makes great visuals are: quality, aesthetics, authenticity, and uniqueness. Those are the basics of great visuals in outdoor tourism content creation. So we talked about the 4 pillars of good photography: quality, aesthetics, authenticity, and uniqueness. Now let's look at how you can implement them in practice to make your pictures better. When we talk about quality, this does not necessarily mean that you need a fancy camera equipment. Camera technology, especially in smartphones, has made incredible advances in the last 15 years. A simple $100 smartphone usually takes better pictures than a $500 digital camera did 10 years ago. And it is not like all pictures were terrible back then. Sure, your friend who owns the newest iPhone might be able to shoot these magazine-like photos. Or that traveler you met bragged about the incredible quality of his 5,000 euro Nikon camera. But interestingly enough, for most online purposes, and especially in outdoor tourism promotion, even a simple smartphone will do. In most cases, the automatic mode of your smartphone camera takes care of all the necessary settings, making sure that the lighting is right, everything is in focus, and the image is not wobbly. Still, you should always make sure that there is enough light when taking your picture. If it's too dark out, you risk ending up with blurry images, full of image noise. Make sure that you always use the highest image resolution offered in your phone camera settings. Yes, it does occupy more memory on your phone, but it is well worth it. Rather resort to deleting pictures you don't need or like and keep enough memory for taking pictures in high resolution. Finally, make sure that you give your phone camera enough time to focus, especially when there is both something in the foreground and background. Tapping on your screen onto the object you want to have in focus usually does the trick and results in nice, sharp images. Also, if you use a friend's phone to take images or one of your guests offers to send you his pictures for use, ask them to either share it through the built-in image hosting apps like Google Photos or the iCloud, or to use a file sharing service like WeTransfer. If you send pictures through WhatsApp or other messengers, the image quality and resolution are heavily reduced, and we don't want that. Regarding aesthetics, there are a few simple recommendations that make your pictures a lot more appealing. First, the lighting. Ask any professional landscape photographer what time of day they shoot their best pictures. They will give you the same answer. The golden hour or magic hour, these refer to the 1 hour during and after sunrise, as well as before and during sunset. This is when the sun is low, the lighting is warm, and the shadows create the richest textures. So if you can try and shoot some landscape or trail photos during that hour. If you shoot during the day, make sure that you get an even lighting, meaning that if the landscape in the background is bright with sunlight, so should be the person or object in the foreground. Otherwise, your pictures end up looking unbalanced. You do not need perfect sunlight to shoot pictures, by the way. Clouds or even fog can make for great visual effects, and might even make a landscape look more dramatic than a boring blue sky. Second, the interaction between foreground and background. This might have happened to you already. You're out in nature and you look at the most beautiful scenery, but once you take a picture, it somehow looks boring. The tall mountain seems small and unimpressive. The river in the distance can hardly be seen, and somehow it just doesn't really speak to you. What often helps here is finding an object to put in the foreground. This can be anything from a flower to a tree, a cool rock, the reflection of a puddle, a person, or even just a hiking trail. The interaction between foreground and background adds different layers to your image, creates more depth, and puts things into perspective. It is an easy trick that landscape photographers have used for many decades. Third, the composition of your image. How you position different objects and layers in your picture plays a big role in how aesthetic we find them. A simple step to the left or right can make all the difference when taking a picture. The easiest rule to follow are the rule of thirds. This rule basically suggests that you divide your picture by 3, both vertically and horizontally. If you do that, you end up with 4 grid lines and 4 points where they intersect. Along these lines, and especially on these intersections, is where you should place your objects in the pictures, be it a flower or a person in the foreground, or a mountain peak, or the sunset in the background. It is scientifically proven that we find pictures that follow the rule of thirds most appealing. Even great partners and artists have used this for hundreds of years. And a pro tip: most phone cameras have the option to enable these grid lines built into their settings. Just open the settings and click on grid lines, and those little helpful lines will appear when you open your camera app. Last but not least, cropping and editing. All smartphone cameras and gallery apps, like Google Photos for example, have an editing feature. Here you can crop your image to work out which part of the image is most powerful. Keep in mind that this might result in a substantial loss in image quality though, so be careful with that. Still, in built-in filters and enhancing automatics, you can make the colors brighter, the contrasts pop out more, and the image sharper. Try it out and check. Whether you like the result, it is often worth it. If you follow these simple rules while also making sure that what you show is authentic, real, and captures the uniqueness and special aspects about your destination, route, or product, you will be able to create high-class, stunning images that will capture the attention of users online with a simple smartphone. To sum them up, they are: make sure there is good lighting when taking your picture. Use the highest resolution setting in your camera app. Make sure your images are sharp and focused. Try and shoot during the golden hour to get warm, beautiful colors. Find a foreground to your background, and apply the rule of thirds to compose your images. And maybe, most importantly, have fun while taking pictures. Photography is a great hobby, and you can use the images for a wide variety of purposes. From route descriptions to Instagram, from email newsletters to your own website or company profile. Just give it a try. You might be more of an artist than you assume.
So that was part 1 of today's training. And as usual, this is your opportunity to ask questions simply by posting them on the chat or by raising your hand virtually so that I can allow you to unmute yourself and share your camera so that we can join a conversation together. I know this was a lot of input, a lot of content for 15 minutes. But the idea here basically is to give you an introduction to it, and then you can always rewatch the recording to get specific steps and try out a few things. I'd be curious to hear what you think of this, if this is something that you already knew and that you've used in the past. But it's surprisingly simple to take better pictures when you follow these simple steps. Things like the rule of thirds are really easy to do. I basically have these grid lines activated in my phone camera all the time, just under settings, grid lines. And it just helps me to position, when I have a foreground and a background, these objects in the image, and it makes the image all the more appealing. We sometimes think that maybe we have to put a foreground in the center of the image. If you say there's like, I don't know, a mountain hut, and then you have the mountains in the background, and you think you put the mountain hut in the center, but it's actually, we find pictures more appealing where the mountain hut is not in the exact center of the image, but actually, let's say 1/3 to the left and 1/3 to the bottom, basically. And then you have the mountains in the background, things like that, or even a hiker on a trail or things like that. This is a very, very easy thing you can do if you have these grid lines activated. They will also sort of remind you to keep that in mind. And then you can just follow that all the time. The same is true for these lightings, where we often think that we need to, when we talk about whether the weather was good in the mountains, we think that blue sky is the perfect weather. It might be true for hiking, even though I even find that often too hot. But for photography, it can often be more interesting to have a somewhat cloudy sky or even foggy conditions, because it just adds to the atmosphere and it makes more interesting pictures. One thing I like to do is just look at a lot of pictures. So I follow landscape photographers on Instagram, and I like to go to photo exhibitions and then just look at these pictures. And then if a picture really speaks to me, if a photo really inspires me, then I try to analyze it a little bit and I see, okay, does it follow the rule of thirds? What's the lighting like? Is there a foreground? Is there a background? What time of the day was this probably shot? And then these are things that I can try out myself whenever I take pictures, even if I'm not using a super expensive DSLR camera, but literally just my phone, which cost 150 euros. So this is not an expensive phone, but all the pictures that you saw, with one exception in the module, were shot with this phone. So it is possible to take at least okay pictures with a cheap smartphone. Okay. Still opening the floor for questions. Dritan already set the grid lines in the camera settings. Well done. Curious to see your results. Do we have other questions regarding photography and selecting the right images? What makes good pictures good? Do you maybe have other opinions? Do you have other experiences? Is there anything you would like to know or you would like to discuss in that respect? So we have a fantastic question from August. What is more important than marketing, the picture quality or the picture content? This is a really great question, and I don't think there is a clear answer because depending on who you ask, you will get different answers. I believe pictures can do two things. Great pictures can do two things. One of them is that they catch your eye, and the other is that they do tell stories. Great pictures do both. And for catching the eye, of course, the quality of the image, and I mean, I'm not talking just about the technical quality like resolution, but also like the way it was shot. Like, is the lighting good? Are the colors good? All of that is probably more important. When you see a picture that catches your eye, and just the first nanoseconds of that image reaching your brain, you're probably going to focus more on the aesthetics of it. Does this appeal to me? Does this somehow grab my attention? But then you're going to give it a second look. And then you're going to look at what is actually in that picture. And there I would say content is a lot more important, because I personally believe that pictures can tell great stories, and they very often do. And even if it's just a landscape picture, there's usually something in there that catches my attention. Is it a beautiful flower? Is it a tree? Can I maybe see the trail along the slopes of the mountain? And I'm like, wow, it must be so cool to walk along there, something like that. And that is the content. And one thing that has happened in recent years is that stock images, something that we also mentioned last week with stock image platforms like Pexels and Pixabay, but there are many more commercial platforms like Adobe Stock or what's the other one? There's Shutterstock and these kinds of platforms. There is a certain aesthetic now with visually perfect, technically perfect images that are used a lot. So, if you look at any destination website, if you look at any marketing website for outdoor sports or any outdoor apparel, whether it's Patagonia or the North Face or Adidas or Saleva, you look at their websites and they all have more or less the same pictures there. So we're already very, very used to these perfect pictures. So I would say that for me personally, but I do spend a lot of time online, so it might be different for you. Actually, content and authenticity are a lot more important these days. I want to see something that is special. I want to see something that is unique, something that's authentic. I don't want everything to look like that perfect alpine landscape from Switzerland, where you have a perfectly beautiful, cute little mountain hut with red flowers on the outside, and then a lake, and then some snow-covered mountains in the background. That's great. And it's great that these places exist, but I've seen that picture literally a million times. So what I want to see is something unique. Maybe there's a cool dog in the picture. Maybe there's like some old buildings in the picture. Maybe there are some sheep in the picture. Maybe there is, I don't know. I love one thing I really like in the Balkans is that you very often find old things that you don't see in a lot of places. An old car, an old Yugoslavic car in a mountain village, and it might be super rusty, and there might be flowers growing out of it, but then it's standing there, and there's a mountain in the background. That is something that I don't see in Germany, that I don't see in Switzerland, that I don't see in Austria, and that I definitely don't see in the United States of America. It's something that you only find in this area. The same is true for certain architecture, for certain animals that live in the mountains, things like that, things that make a place unique, that make it special, that really capture the essence of a place. I think that is the way more important thing when it comes to pictures. That is my personal opinion, but it is sort of what makes me consider traveling to that specific place, because it is something that I will only find there. If it looks just like any other place, then, why would I even travel there? If it doesn't matter whether I go to France, Portugal, Serbia, or Italy, if it's all the same. I want to see what's special about your place. So to answer your question, from my perspective, I would say the picture content is actually way more important than the picture quality. So really think about the uniqueness and the authenticity of what you want to show. And this doesn't always have to be perfect. It can even contain negative aspects about a place. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe not trash lying around. It's probably not the most appealing image, but something. It can be an old ruin, of an old factory or something like that. If it is what makes this place unique, it might not be pretty, but it is authentic and it's interesting. And that's what you want to go for. Do we have more questions or opinions? Dritan agrees. So Stephanie is raising a hand. I am just going to allow you to unmute yourself, Stephanie. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I think I'm off mute.
That's perfect. Right. Hi, good to hear you.
Hi. I just wanted to add some things because my husband is a photographer, videographer, and we also just finished producing a tourism brochure about the Šarko-Rakoritnik region. So I could add to some of the things that you mentioned. Something that you just mentioned is definitely the old architecture and things that maybe some people who are living in the Balkans think is very normal and not interesting. Other people find it very interesting, especially the architecture and things that look old, or that are the sheepfolds, or just basically any type of architecture, because it's going to be unique. It's not something that's found in a different part of the world. And people, if possible, with their permission, that's something in there as well. The animals, trails, any kind of the trail sign or trail symbol, especially if it's along, for example, the High Skardus Trail, or a different type of big hiking trail that helps people to see if just what the markings look like. And also going back to the video that we watched, for example, the objects in perspective to add depth. Something that is commonly used is zooming in on the hiking shoes. Mm-hmm. That way you don't have the actual image of the person, but if you have one or two other people, then you can kind of zoom in on the shoes, so it shows that people are hiking through the area, and that is something that can give depth, going from different angles, looking from like low on the ground or looking up. Those are things that are very eye-catching. And I think the other thing I was going to add was for if you're shooting with your cell phone, then the portrait mode can be very helpful for focusing on plants or something that's very close up, because the portrait mode it sort of blurs the things that are in the background and can focus very well on the flower or the plant. So for specific things like that mode can be a useful one to use. So you can play with that. And that's all. everything else.
Thank you so much for adding it, Stephanie. I couldn't agree more. So I think those are very, very valuable inputs, especially also the one about the old architecture. I remember when I was living in Albania, and I took a lot of pictures. And whenever I would show them to people in Germany, in the US, or somewhere else, I would have these stunning sunset pictures of the mountains, and they were like, yeah, sure, cool. And then there would be one that has one of the 700,000 bunkers that you find in Albania, and people would be like, what's this? Oh, this is so interesting. Tell me more about this. It's simply because it is something they are not used to. It's something that is interesting to them because it is something they don't know, but at the same time that is unique about this particular place. They're not pretty, and they do not tell a very positive story, but they tell a story and they are interesting, and that is what catches people's attention. So I think that's very true. And yeah, thank you also for the tip with the portrait mode. I think that's a great idea. When you take pictures of flowers or mushrooms or whatever it is that you find along the trail. I think just generally playing around with these settings, playing around with what your smartphone camera can do is a great way of exploring this. I mean, when you go on a hike, and you have time, you can take 100 pictures at the hike and then just select the pictures that you find interesting afterwards. So play around with it, have a little fun taking pictures, and yeah, try out different angles. Go really down to the floor, take a picture from underneath, or lift the phone up over your head, or try a close-up of a hiking boot or a hiking pole or your backpack in front of the mountains. Everything that makes it interesting, that adds a story to it. No. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I think perfect input. And if your new brochure is available digitally, please feel free to send me a PDF. I would love to look at it. Okay. Apurva is adding a comment on the chat saying, I definitely think that sometimes an imperfect picture adds to the authenticity of the place. In a way, gives out a real image. I fully agree. We are so used to these picture perfect images that now I would even say imperfect pictures, or pictures showing flaws of places, showing imperfection, catch our attention more because it is something that we're not so used to seeing. And no place is perfect. And very, very often the imperfect things are actually what we're looking for to experience when we travel somewhere, because we don't just want to sit in a catalog image. We want to experience real life. We want to experience authenticity. So imperfect pictures definitely add to the authenticity. Thank you, Purva. That's a great comment as well. Okay. Do we have more questions? Or should we move on to the second part? Okay, it doesn't seem that way. My suggestion is we move on to the second module of today's session. And if you have any questions about the first half still later, we can add them. We can discuss them in the Q&A part after the second module. Otherwise, any questions that come up now during the second half of the module, just put them on the chat. We'll raise your hand later so that we can discuss them. And please let me know in case there are any technical problems with the video.
Okay, now we have already talked plenty about the importance of available activities such as hiking routes to attract visitors to emerging outdoor tourism destinations. We looked into how you can write compelling texts to elevate your content and how you can make sure that you have the right visuals to stand out. But there are still two things missing that are absolutely crucial: places and offers. In the end, this is what actually determines the business you probably are running already or that you are planning to run. Whether it is a guest house or a hotel, a restaurant or a horse farm, or any other kind of business that caters to outdoor tourists, you will want to make sure that your business appears on the map. And if you offer guided tours, excursion packages, cooking classes, farm visits, or any kind of authentic experience, you will want to present your offers online so that travelers can find and book them. So in this chapter, we're going to look into detail how to create so-called points of interest to promote your destination and business, how to create and publish offers online, and how to link all your content together so that travelers will find all of your content. Are you ready? Several times before in this course, we agreed that people travel to have experiences, not to visit places. Nonetheless, places still play an important role in tourism. They are the foundation of the destination, if you want so. Any place that tourists might find interesting, worth visiting, or simply useful is considered a so-called point of interest, or in short, POI. POIs can be anything from a hotel, guest house, or restaurant to a gear rental shop, grocery store, or parking lot, but also a mountain summit or viewpoint, a lake or beach, a historic site or museum, even something as trivial as a signpost, information board, or a resting bench. If you run a tourism business, you will of course not think of your business in the same category as, let's say, a park bench or a viewpoint, but from the traveler's perspective, they can be equally important. A landmark like the mountaintop, lake, or viewpoint is a reason for someone to remember. Alex to travel, hike, or cycle to a specific destination? Your hotel, restaurant, guest house, or guiding office, to him, is a necessity for being able to actually do his trip. This is why when attempting to promote your outdoor tourism destination through online content, you should make sure to put not only your own business on the digital map, but also other points of interest nearby that might be relevant to travelers. This way, you give someone like Alex plenty of reasons to visit while at the same time virtually guiding them towards your business and services. One of the most powerful tools to do so on Outdoor Active, as was mentioned before, is to link activities and routes to points of interest. This way, when someone like Alex is interested in an activity, the reason he travels in the first place, he will also see your business and other points of interest for him. Let us return to the route that Ari already created in one of the previous chapters. This is what it currently looks like published on Outdoor Active. It's nice, but there is a way we can make it even better, and that is by linking POIs, points of interest. To do that, Ari opens the route in Outdoor Active My Business. She can either do it by clicking on the Edit button here in the drop-down menu, or by accessing it through My Business Content Creator like this. Now Ari can navigate to the tab Linked POI at the top. Here on the map, she can see whether any POIs already exist around her route. Let's scroll out a little. There's a parking lot here, but that's not relevant for her route. So now, Ari can think of what POIs she would like to add to the map. What's important to note is that any POI she creates and publishes will not only be visible through this route, but on the platform as a whole, in the virtual travel guide, findable through Google, etc. They can even be linked to any other route in the future, so adding new points of interest really makes sense. What points should she add? First of all, her guest house, of course. It is her business. She wants to promote it, and it should, of course, be a prominent spot on the map. Let us start with that one. To add a new point to the map, Ari simply navigates to the Content Manager under Contents to Points of Interest. This is where she can manage all POIs she has already added to the platform. In her case, none so far. She now clicks on Create New Point and is immediately taken to an online form. First, she has to select the type of POI from the drop-down menu. In her case, Guest House. She then puts down the name of her guest house as title Ari's Mountain Inn. The summary, just as we discussed it, for the route descriptions should be catchy, inspiring, and inviting to potential guests. Ari should think about her target group, consider their needs and motivations to travel, and then choose a short, catchy, 1 or 2 sentence summary of what makes her guest house unique. Charming and authentic guest house with a view, a comfortable base for both guided and individual adventures into the wildly beautiful Babas Mountains. Great! If she wants, she can add a longer description now. Remember, all of these details are voluntary. You can put as much information and inspiration there as you like. For a POI, that is a mountain summit, a lake, or a viewpoint. A title and a short summary is probably enough. For your business, however, it probably makes sense to add more details, more information, and a little bit of storytelling to make sure potential customers are inspired to actually visit you. Ari wrote a nice little description about her guest house. Now she can choose what additional details she wants to provide. The prices for her rooms, or at least price ranges. The address, so guests can easily find her or show it to a taxi driver. Very importantly, her phone number, email address, and if she has one, a link to her website. She can edit any of these details later, no problem. For now, she clicks on Save. Now, a number of additional tabs appear. Under Details, she can add more specific information about her guest house. Does she have a second phone number? Does her guest house fall under a 1, 2, 3, 4-star category? How many beds does she have? At what price do her fares start? She can describe the location and surroundings in detail if she likes. Once she has provided the details she wants, she saves and moves on. Just as with route descriptions, the tab How to Get There allows her to add information about how guests can travel to her guest house. Is there a public transportation option? How can guests drive there themselves? Is parking possible? Don't forget to save, Ari. If her guest house has specific opening hours or might be even closed on certain days, she can add those under the tab Opens. Here she can also provide additional information like check-in and check-out times or where to find her in case guests arrive unannounced. Probably the most important tab is Location. This is where Ari usually puts her business on the map. Through the search bar, Ari can navigate roughly to the right place. Using the map, she then navigates to the right place and clicks on the map there. Et voilà, location logged. Again, save this and move on. Media, as within route descriptions, lets Ari upload pictures of her guest house. She chooses a nice exterior view, her nicest room, and the nice breakfast she offers to her guests. By the way, we created all of these images using AI. They are all completely fake, as is Ari and her guest house. Even if the pictures you have of your business are not quite that nice, authenticity triumphs perfection here. Again, be real. Now that Ari has completed all the different tabs, she can navigate to status, see that she has performed a decent rank, and then put her POI as published. With a click on View on Outdoor Active, Ari can check how the POI appears and whether she has added all the details she wanted to add. Now to the good part. In the Content Manager, Ari can revisit the route description she has prepared. Now when she checks the linked POI tab, her guest house should appear right on the map. She can now select how she wants to click it on the route. As a waypoint, yes. A tip, of course. And a rest stop, sure thing. She clicks on Continue and then saves. Now if she wants, and we would always recommend that, Ari can add additional points to the map. For example, the summit and a small mountain cabin. This way, hikers will get a better idea of what they can find during this hiker. We would usually recommend adding at least 3 POIs to each route, but you can also add 5 or 10, of course. Also, when she checks the status of her route now, she will see that her content rank has improved even higher. Well done! Ari's point of interest, especially her guest house, will now show up everywhere on the Outdoor Active platform and application. In her route, on the map, and in the virtual travel guide. If she adds additional hiking routes in the future, she can easily add the same POIs again, without having to re-enter them, as long as they are along the route. Of course, and the good thing, even other authors can add her POIs and her business to their routes. This way, promoting your place even further without you having to do anything additional. So you see, publishing POI content, especially a business you want to promote, but also other sites and attractions of your destination, through the platform is great and comparably easy way to put them on a traveler's map and make sure they are seen. Now, if you are a tour guide or a tour operator, you offer guided tours or even tour packages, right? It's time to make those available through the platform too. Let's return to Ari, our friend in the Baba Mountains of North Macedonia. She has prepared a route description to promote the activities a visitor can experience in her destination. She has written a great little text and added marvelous pictures, and she has linked her guest house as a POI to the route, so tourists know that they can book a stay there. But remember, Ari is a tour guide. And as such, she even offers a guided tour on the route she just published. Time to promote that as well. And this is not only working for guided tours, of course. Maybe Ari offers authentic cooking classes in her guest house, mushroom picking classes, cheese or rakia tastings. Maybe she has horses and offers riding lessons. Whatever experience she offers to her guests, she can promote them through the platform. On Outdoor Active, there is a distinction between bookable experiences that do not have a fixed date. That is, offers that can be booked anytime by travelers. Those are called offers. Bookable experiences that have a fixed departure date and time, even though they are recurring, are called events. But creating them works exactly the same. To create an offer, Ari opens the Content Manager in Outdoor Active My Business and navigates under Content to Offers or Events. Here, she can manage all of her existing offers, whether they have already been published or not. To make a new listing, she clicks on Create Offer, selects the right kind of activity or experience, chooses a catchy title, and writes a short, compelling summary, as she did for the route description, the POI, and so on. She then continues to fill in the form with all the additional details, a lengthy description of what awaits the guest, the cost of the activity and the currency, and the expected duration of the tour. Very important, if this tour can only be booked a certain time of the year, she should add these dates under validity period. This is the period for which the guided activity can be booked. The display period refers to the time frame in which this should be shown online. If you leave this empty, your offer will always be shown, even if it can only be booked in summer, for example. If you offer your service through an online booking portal, like Get Your Guide, Viator, or Airbnb Experiences, you can add a URL to that booking platform here under Booking URL. We will look at those services in one of the final chapters, of course. Under Contact URL, you can add your website, if you have one, or a link to your social media profile, for example. Below, you have the opportunity to add more details, such as special terms that apply or which services are included in the offer. Now, when Ari clicks on Save, a number of new tabs appear. Again, if she wants, she can add information about how to get to the meeting point under the tab Getting There. Very important is the tab Location, as everything is map-based. Ari must add a location for the starting point, so that users can find her offer on the map. As before, when creating a POI, Ari can use the search bar to navigate roughly to the right area and then use the map to find the correct spot for the activity and click on it. Once she has done that, she should of course add at least one compelling image to the offer, here under the tab Media. Done. Now she can check her rank again under Status and then publish the offer. Let's see what it looks like. And that is how easy it is to publish an offer through Outdoor Active. It will now be shown to users on the map and in the virtual travel guide. So it is a great way of increasing the visibility of your offers. To create an event that is a guided activity with a set of date and time, even if they are recurring, is equally easy, by the way. Simply select events instead of offers in the Content Manager. Oh, and a last pro tip. If Ari wants, she can add a link to the guided tour she just published in the route description of the trail she also created. She can do that under the author's advice or even in the description. Simply add a sentence like, Guide Ari offers great guided tours on this route. Check them out. Then select a part of the text, click on the link symbol, and copy-paste the URL from the published offer there. Save the whole thing, and now your offer appears as a link in the route itself. That's another great way of increasing the visibility of your offers even further. Try it out. In summary, to list your offers and events for guided tours and other authentic experiences on Outdoor Active allows you to reach a much wider and highly relevant audience completely for free. Especially in combination with other contents such as route descriptions and POIs, you can really boost them through this channel, while at the same time giving travelers direct access to authentic local experiences that they would otherwise probably never find.
And that was the second module for today's session. A deep dive into creating points of interest, offers, and events, and what's important there. Do we have any questions? Please put them on the chat or raise your hand so I can activate your microphone and camera. Also, if you have comments regarding that, while you think of that and type your questions, maybe a quick comment regarding all of this. So what I believe makes all of these different types of content particularly strong is when you combine them. So when you link points of interest to routes and when you link an offer to the route as well. Because what happens very often is that somebody looks, and we can back that up through data, somebody's looking for experiences in a region, they're looking for activities, that's just sort of checking out what is there, what can be done there. And that sort of is the entry point. It's the door that they walk through, but ideally this is where they should see all of these other things that are available. So they might be looking for a hike, but they end up finding a guest house, a restaurant, a local museum, or something else. And this is also a very, very great way to promote a business, of course, your own business or other businesses in the area. Because again, I might travel to do certain activities, but then I also need to eat and I need to sleep somewhere. And if this is already connected, then I know what the best place for me to visit is. So I might want to, climb a mountaintop, or I want to do a hike somewhere near a nice lake. And if it's shown to me that there is a restaurant there is a place where I can get local authentic food, then I will probably not pack a big lunch, but I'd much rather eat there and support this local business while at the same time having an even better experience. The same is true if I see that there is a guest house and it's always linked to all of these cool hikes, or it's at the starting point of a lot of really cool activities. I'm probably going to think about, hey, this might be a really nice place to spend a week or a prolonged weekend because there's so much I can do from there. So it's really the combination of these things. And if I then also see that I can get a guide to do this activity for me, or maybe I actually received a cool email from one of the participants. I hope it's okay if I share this here, who's currently creating a route that passes by a farm where people can do farm visits and they can have dinner there, they can have food there. So the activity, the guided offer that they're offering is basically a farm visit and a food tasting, but the activity itself is basically you go hiking and then you can book the offer for a farm visit on the basically linked to the same activity, and it gives you the opportunity to experience multiple things at the same time, and you can all find it in the same place. Okay, we have the first question on the chat from Michael. Michael's asking, if you upload your offer guided tour to Outeractive, it might become an organized group tour. If you are not a tour operator, but just a tour guide, you still must follow the EU regulations, right? Correct. Okay, so this is a rather complicated field. First of all, the difference sort of is, again, between offer and event. So, for example, if you say, I'm offering a guided tour next Saturday, and whoever books it can join it, whether it's 4 people or 8 people or just 2 people, then it can become an organized group tour, of course, like that. Same is true if you make an offer and people can just contact you directly and do the details with you. In general, of course, you are responsible for everything that you offer. This is just the portal for which you can advertise it, for which you can promote it. So, and the reason I cannot give you a general answer to that is because the guiding laws are very, very, very different in every country. Even within the European Union, there are some EU guidelines, but then there are very different national laws and regulations. So, for example, in Italy, you have to be a certified guide in order to guide people on trails, even if they're easy trails. If they're more difficult trails, you even need to be a proper WIMLA certified mountain guide, of course. In Germany, for example, if it is a difficult mountain trail, a red or black trail, basically, then you have to be a certified Wimbler guide. If it's an easy trail, a blue trail without immediate danger, you actually do not need to have any training whatsoever. Everybody can offer guided tours. However, if it becomes an organized group tour or even with multiple days, then of course, you as the tour operator might fulfill some legal obligations. And I'm sure that in any of the countries of people present on this calls, there are different rules and regulations. So of course, if you offer guided activities and tours, make sure that you always keep the legal requirements and regulations in mind, and that you stick to them. What the platform offers is basically just a space for you to communicate that offer, to present it to the public. So you are responsible for what you're offering. And if it is an illegal offer and it's obviously illegal, then the platform is going to flag it and take it down. So please do not offer, I don't know, super illegal things like poaching activities in protected areas. So come to, I don't know, the Shari Mountains and kill a Balkan lynx, where we don't want to see that on the platform. But when it comes to the actual regulations of like doing these activities and implementing them together with guests, it's your responsibility to make sure that you stay within the legal limits, of course. Platform helps you to promote them and to advertise them to people. Michael, I hope that that answers your question. I know this is a very complicated field, and we're not offering a training on how you can offer guided tours here. That would be a different field. I think there is a course on that in the Atingi platform that I mentioned in one of the previous emails. But yeah, in the end, the summary is basically you're responsible for what you offer. This is just a channel for which you communicate it. So make sure that what you offer is legal and sound. Okay, and then we have the question from Fiona. Is it possible to put a guided tour online that is hosted by a friend, or how to mention it, and should the friend have an account? So technically, well, if that friend, if you and that friend have an agreement that you promote their services, then that is totally fine. As long as you have the authority to promote it, you can offer that. And you can also put different contact details for each offer. So if you, for example, say, I don't know, I have 4 or 5 friends in my region and they are tour guides, but they're not so digitally savvy, but I want to support them, so I'm putting their offers online. Then you can do so, and then you can add always their contact details so that people can book the tours directly with them. Of course, one thing that is a little more powerful is if the account that posted the offer is also the one that is offering it, because then people, you know, you've seen this before, that it says on the offer responsible for this content, and there's a logo and the organization or the business. And of course, if you know, there is one tour guiding organization up there, but then a different tour guide below, it can become a little confusing, and maybe people want to even find out more about the guide. So ideally, of course, it comes from the person themselves. But I also understand that that is not always viable or not always a good option. And for example, if you run, let's say, a guest house and you work with certain tour guides that offer activities, it can even be really nice that you, as the guest house, are sort of offering this. So you're the one responsible for the content, and then the guide is down there. In this case, I would always suggest that you do a little bit of an introduction of the guide. It can just be 1 or 2 sentences in the longer description of the offer, where you say your guide will be, I don't know, Slavoj, and he's been a local guide for 10 years and knows the forest like the back of his hand, and he can share great stories with you. I don't know, something, you know, very simple, so that people get a feeling for who it is. But technically, you are, of course, allowed to also post the offers of other people if you have an agreement with them that you have the authority to do that. So it has to be clear that you are doing this basically on behalf of them and not without their knowledge. That's very, very important. You should not put anything on there that you haven't agreed with upon. This also, by the way, before I answer your follow-up question, Fiona, this also applies to points of interest, by the way. You can, of course, add points of interest for businesses that you do not own. So, for example, if there is a mountain hut, that you don't own, but it's there, you can add it as a point of interest. And if they have a public website, you can add that public website as well. What you should not do in this case is put a personal phone number of somebody running this place on this point of interest description if you do not have their agreement that you're allowed to share their personal telephone number, because that is very critical when you share personal information from somebody else without their consent. So make sure that you have their consent before share something like that. What I would recommend is, if it is not your business, if it is a business but it's not your business, keep it as vague as possible. So say, okay, there is the name of the restaurant and what kind of restaurant, what they offer, but do not upload a photo of their menu. Do not upload opening hours because they might change and you wouldn't know. Do not add a telephone number if they haven't given you the consent of doing that. Of course, if you speak to them and you say, hey, I want to publish a few routes and activities in this area, and I want to include your restaurant in them. Can I share the following details? And they say, yeah, sure, that's great. Here are even some pictures that you can use. Brilliant. But in this case, then again, you have the consent and you're doing it on their behalf, and you have the authority to share this information. Otherwise, if you keep it general, if it's the kind of information that is public anyway, like the name of the restaurant, the location of the restaurant, and what kind of restaurant it is, or the same for a guest house, then you can, of course, also just share it because it is public knowledge, common knowledge anyway, that you are just putting on this platform. Right. And then we have a follow-up question from you, Fiona. Also, if you want to offer a tour of the historic site, town nearby, the national park, can you put it on because it's not an event in the route that you have marked? So first of all, you can upload any kind of offer or event, even if it is not connected to a route that you have published. So those can be two things, and they can be found individually from each other. So on Outeractive, for example, there's a whole section for guided activities and offers. And for example, if you look at the map and you click on see content or show content, you will also see guided activities. So first of all, yes, you can totally upload them, you can publish them, and people will find them. They will also appear in the travel guide. If they're not directly connected to the route, I would consider whether it's worth it linking them in the route, in the text as was shown in the video. This can make sense in specific cases. So for example, recently, I currently live in Ecuador, and recently I visited a mountain where there are some archaeological sites nearby. And the route that I uploaded was basically not to the archaeological site, but the starting point of the route was near the archaeological site. So I put a little note in there and I said, while you're doing this half-day tour, or right after doing this half-day tour, you still usually have time to visit the archaeological site. And then I linked that archaeological site. In this case, it was not a guided tour because I don't offer guided tours there, and I don't know who does. It was a little difficult to find information, but I just linked basically the information center for this archaeological site so people can visit that. And so there might be cases where that makes sense, where you say, okay, there is a hike you do in the national park, and then nearby is a historical site, and it makes sense to combine these activities. Then in the author's advice, for example, this is a great little tip or recommendation you can give to the traveler. If, let's say, your route is, I don't know, on the surrounding mountains of Albania, and the UNESCO heritage site Butrint is 50 kilometers away, it probably does not make sense to link that content in the same route, because, you know, of course, somebody who visits the Riviera might also want to visit that site, but it's probably not something they're going to do on the same day and in combination with that specific activity. So try to put yourself in the shoes of the traveler and think what makes sense for them. How would you recommend it if you just spoke to them, basically? And then if it's something that you say like, yeah, it makes sense, then you can link it to the same route. If not, then I would not do it. I would not link it. But of course, you can still upload the offer because people will find it through the travel guide, and it might be a great experience that they want to do, especially when they look at different things they can do in the area, when they keep exploring the specific region and they find this kind of offer. It might be amazing because they say, okay, I can do 2-3 days of hiking. I can visit 2 historical sites, and maybe you can do a cooking class. And all of these offers are right there for them to find. I hope that answered your question. Okay, and then Aldin is asking, is it possible to change the ownership of the old route created on a free account to the new business account? This is a specific question, Aline, it is possible, but you cannot do it yourself, unfortunately. So what I would kindly ask you to do is you can send me an email with a link or the email address of your old account, and then the link or email address to your new account. And if you want, we can even merge these accounts all together. If you want only to transport 1 or 2 routes from the old account to the new account, you can also just send me the links to routes and say, hey, I want it from that old account to the new account. But if you want, we can also merge your old account with your new account and delete your old account so that all of the content, all of the tracks that you recorded, all of the waypoints and so on from your old account are transferred to your new account and the old account is deleted. Just some routes. Okay, perfect. Then just send me an email with the link to the routes and say, these are the routes I want to have in my new account. And then I can change the ownership in the system. This is a specific question. This is why there's no automatic tool for this. But yeah, we can do that. All right. I think we have time for a few more questions or comments. Is there anything you want to discuss? Do you have any more questions? Any statements you want to share? Put them on the chat or raise your hand. So we have a question from Purva. You have mentioned previously what not to post, like poaching, etc. But how can one effectively encourage exploration while also advocating for responsible travel practices? Could you give any example for how the content can look like? That is a fantastic question, Purva. Thank you. Okay, so the question basically is how can we encourage people to explore a region, to explore a destination, but also to stick to local rules and regulations? I think one of the strongest tools that you have there is your words, the way you describe activities, the way you describe in your summary and in your description a route or an offer and so on, or a point of interest. There's a lot you can say there, and there's a lot that you can transport through there. So there are 2 ways of doing that. One of them is to list all of the things that are forbidden. The other is to tell positive stories. And I believe this is actually the more successful, the more effective way of doing this. I don't want to go too much into detail, but I do believe that it is possible. I'm just thinking of an example. So, for example, there is a thing that in protected areas, we're talking a lot about so-called sexy species. Of course, you know that, for example, in protected areas, you have a lot of biodiversity. You have a lot of different animals and plants and shrooms and so on that live there. But there are always some species that create a lot of attention and that get a lot of attention. The Balkan lynx in the Shari Mountains, some specific birds, the bears in Italy or Romania, some tigers in India or Nepal, and by using these species that people can relate to and sort of telling their stories a little bit, you can encourage people to behave sustainably. So, for example, you can say you can talk a little bit about, say, okay, here's a route in a protected area in a national park. It's a hiking route. It's very, very beautiful. It takes you to the summit. And if you're lucky, you can maybe see some of these sexy species. You can see some of these cool animals or plants. But of course, the only reason they are still there is because they are protected from negative impacts in the national park. So you as a traveler can play a positive role in this and stay on the trails. Make sure you do not disturb them, and that you behave in a certain way. This way, people will know why they should behave a certain way and what they can do and cannot do. So it's a good way of sort of sugarcoating rules and even the things that are forbidden, while making sure that people understand why they matter. Of course, as somebody who offers guided tours, you're probably going to be the guide yourself, or you're going to have guides, and then it is your responsibility to make sure that during these guided activities, people stick to the rules. That is the easiest way. Now, if you upload a route description, you should, of course, and I think I mentioned this before in one of the previous sessions, you should make sure that they do not violate any rules of protected areas, and that they do not motivate people to do unsustainable behavior, to behave badly, poorly, in areas. This can be due to nature conservation, but it can also mean that you don't want to upload an activity that would possibly molest someone. So because the hiking goes directly through their backyard, so they might be frustrated. So make sure that when you upload such content, that you make sure that the content itself is not problematic in the first place. And even in the content, then using storytelling, using these kinds of recommendations for how to behave can have a big impact on how people actually behave while they're in the field. I will think about whether I have any specific examples, and if I can think of one this afternoon, I will share it in the follow-up email that you will receive later tonight, and then you can check that out. It's an interesting question, and I'll see if I find any perfect best practices, any good examples that I can share. Thank you. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Andia needs a pair of 2 accounts. I'm not sure I understand what you mean. If it's something that I can support with, just send me a follow-up email and let me know how I can help you, how I can get you that pair of accounts, or do you mean merging of the accounts? Just as I explained it, just email me what you need support with, and then I'll make that happen in the back end. Merging accounts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just send me an email with the old account and a new account. The email address for each of the accounts is enough. Then I know which one is done. Just tell me this is the old account, this is the new account, and I can merge them together. And all of the content will be taken to your new account, and the old account will be deleted. Exactly. Okay. Good. Do we have an additional question? That's your last chance to put it on the chat for this week. Okay, doesn't seem this way. Let's look at our homework recommendation for this week then. Here we go. So again, our recommendation for trying the things that you learned today in practice. This is something you've seen every week now. If you still haven't done so, register yourself and your organization or business on Outdoor-Active My Business. There were instructions were in the previous sessions, in the first session and the follow-up session. So you should have that information in the video recordings and in your email, and in your emails that you received. I'll also include the link again in this week's follow-up email. And you should have by now, if you follow the recommendations, created a route, either by recording in the field or creating it in the route planner, and you should have added a lot of details now, a title, a catchy summary, a convincing description, and then maybe a lot more details, as we saw last week, how we can improve the rank. So one thing that I would suggest this week is, if you haven't done it yet, add 5 to 15 good pictures to your route. Either you already have them, or this can be your opportunity to try out what you learned in the first half of today's session, and go out into the field and take some nice pictures on the trail. And then you should also select one image to be the thumbnail image, which is going to be sort of the first image that's always shown when your route appears in the travel guide or on the map. So it should be like the most inspirational picture, the most eye-catching picture. And then I would recommend that you create at least one point of interest, the way we saw in the second half of today's session. It can be your business, it can be a mountaintop, it can be a lake, it can be a resting stop, it can be a restaurant, it can even be a parking lot if that is something that you feel like is important for this route. Create it in the content manager on Outdoor-Active My Business. Add at least a title, a summary, and a picture to it, and of course the location. Otherwise, you won't even be able to publish it. Publish the point of interest and then link it to your route. That I think would really that's a really great way to practice all of that. Also the linking of the content. Of course, if you want to add just 3, 4, 5 points of interest, that's also fine. But try doing at least one if you want to. And this way, if you add pictures and points of interest and you've already filled in the details, you should be able to get your autorective rank of the route that you've been working on to at least 85 points at this point. If not, try to see if you can get it up there so that it will be among the most prominent and the highest ranking routes on autorective. A quick look at next week's session. Next week, Wednesday, will be our last live session in the Outdoor Tourism Content Creator Training. It will take place as usual at 6:30 CET. And the topic will be spreading the word. So we will look at how we can use different platforms. We've been really focusing on the autorective platform as an example, but now we're going to open up or broaden the horizon a little bit and look at other platforms as well. So we're going to look at how you can manage your business on Google Business, so that you can make sure that your business is on Google Maps, and how you can manage your account, or even if your business already is on Google Maps, but you didn't put it there, how you can claim ownership of that, start managing it. We're going to do the same for TripAdvisor, which is still a very important platform for travelers' reviews online. We're going to give you a basic introduction to different online platforms, including online travel agencies such as Booking.com, Airbnb, and so on. We're going to look at guiding platforms like Viator or Get Your Guide. Very important, we're not going to go into detail on how you can sign up to these platforms. We're just going to give you sort of an orientation, but I will share some resources with you next week on how you can get started on each of these platforms as well. And we're going to look at social media a little bit and see how you can, first of all, select the social media channels that are relevant to you based on your target group, because that really differs. Not every business needs to be on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever you're using. You don't need to be on all of these platforms. It makes more sense to focus on the ones that are relevant to your target group. And then we're going to share some very practical tips with you on how you can use these platforms to a good effect without investing too much effort into it, because not everybody wants to spend all day on social media managing their business there, and also the effects are going to be limited very often. But I will share what we will see, some easy steps that you can follow so that without big efforts, you can still create some positive results through social media. Exactly. And then I mentioned this last week, so this is not officially part of the course, but I just want to renew this invitation. Tomorrow afternoon at 4:30 Central European Time, we're going to have a very, very interesting online event where researchers are going to present the results from 2 major studies that were done on adventure and outdoor tourism in the Western Balkans over the last year. Especially the second study is going to be presented. It's going to be very, very interesting to many of you, I believe, because it really focuses on the decision-making process of travelers, in this case, in the German target market, basically what image they have of the Western Balkans and individual countries in the Western Balkans, where this image comes from, and what needs to happen to improve this image, so that they will decide to travel to the Western Balkans for outdoor and adventure travel. The other study, the first study is going to be presented, is going to look at the economic impact of hiking tourism, specifically on the peaks of the Balkan Trail. So who benefits from it? What are the expectations of travelers? What are their experiences when they actually go hike the trail? And what can be done to improve the positive impact of this trail further? I do believe this is an interesting session. I'm going to share the link with you right now, and also in the follow-up email that you receive later tonight. And it's a free online event, so you can register and then join it tomorrow afternoon if you want to. And that would be it for this week's session, the 5th session of the Outdoor Tourism Content Creator Training. If you have any questions until next week that are very urgent, you can email me. If not, you can also save them for the Q&A at the beginning of next week's session. Thank you so much for being part of this today again, and I really look forward to seeing you again for the final training session next week. Have a nice evening, good night, and take care.